A breakthrough for scientists after they had a 20-minute conversation with a humpback whale.
Did it say I'm tired of fish? I'm tired of plankton?
I have.
So this team, including a professor from UC Davis, is hoping for more interspecies dialogue following this groundbreaking exchange with a whale named Twain. Want to hear more? I do. Here's Kayla Muller with more.
For centuries, we believed the ocean was a vast, silent wilderness. But that belief may be dangerously wrong. Beneath the Caribbean's dark surface, something ancient has been listening, recording, and communicating long before humans ever built cities or crossed oceans. When artificial intelligence finally decoded patterns in whale vocalizations after 50 years of study, scientists expected a breakthrough in animal communication. Instead, they uncovered something far more disturbing.
The scientists made several attempts before getting a successful response.
And we really got nothing until this particular encounter. We were not targeting Twain. We just happened to come across her.
Structured messages that change when human ships arrive, shift after wars and nuclear tests, and appear to reference events that don't belong to whales at all. What were these sounds meant to document? Who were they meant for? And if whales have been observing us for millennia, what do they know about humanity that we don't? Today's story challenges everything we think we understand about intelligence, the ocean, and our place within it. And once you hear it, the sea will never feel empty again. The breakthrough. The story begins off the coast of Dominica, a small Caribbean island surrounded by some of the deepest waters in the Atlantic.
Approaching Dominica, from the shoreline, the first signs of a battered country. Onshore, at the port, the picture is clearer.
This is where sperm whale families have lived for generations, never migrating, raising their young in underwater canyons that plunge thousands of feet into darkness. For years, a team of marine biologists had been recording every sound these whales made, collecting hundreds of thousands of clicks, calls, and patterns, without understanding what any of it meant. Sperm whales communicate through something called codas, rapid sequences of clicks that happen so fast the human ear can barely separate them. Click, 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 pause, click, click. These patterns repeat endlessly, and for decades, scientists assumed they were nothing more than biological noise. Maybe the whales were echolocating, bouncing sound off objects to navigate the dark water. Maybe they were calling out to family members. Maybe the sounds meant nothing at all, just random chatter from creatures operating on pure instinct. But there were always hints that something deeper was happening. Whales in different parts of the ocean made completely different patterns. A family near Dominica sounded nothing like a family near Japan or New Zealand. If these sounds were just instinct, why would they vary so dramatically? Why would whales on opposite sides of the planet speak differently, as if they had developed their own regional accents? Then scientists noticed something even more troubling. Young whales did not know how to click properly when they were born. Researchers recorded baby sperm whales making clumsy, broken sounds that bore no resemblance to adult communication. These calves had to learn. They practiced for years, swimming beside their mothers and aunts, listening carefully, trying to copy what they heard, often failing before slowly improving. This was not instinct. This was education. This was culture being passed from one generation to the next. The question became unavoidable. If whales were teaching their young how to speak, what exactly were they teaching them to say? The machine that learned to listen. Human brains are remarkable at many things. We can recognize faces in crowds, tell stories that move people to tears, solve problems that seem impossible. But analyzing thousands of hours of underwater sounds happening faster than we can process them is not one of our strengths. Researchers spent decades listening to whale recordings, making charts, organizing sounds into categories, trying desperately to find patterns hidden in the noise. They failed. There was simply too much data, too many variables, too many patterns hiding inside other patterns. Then artificial intelligence entered the picture, and everything changed. A team of marine biologists, computer scientists, linguists, and engineers launched an ambitious project with a single goal: decode whale language using machine learning. They deployed dozens of hydrophones across the ocean floor near Dominica, recording constantly, 24 hours a day. They attached special tags to individual whales that tracked not just sound, but depth, movement, and orientation, meaning every single click could be matched to a specific whale performing a specific action at a specific moment. The data poured in faster than any human could analyze it. Hundreds of thousands of vocalizations, terabytes of information, more sound than anyone could listen to in a lifetime. But machines do not get tired. They do not miss patterns. They do not make assumptions about what they expect to find. The AI listened to everything, measured the timing between clicks down to the millisecond, analyzed pitch and rhythm and sequence, compared codas across different whales and different situations, and then it started seeing things that humans had missed for half a century. The AI discovered that whale codas followed rules. Certain click patterns appeared exclusively in specific social situations. Other patterns showed up only during hunting. Some codas happened when whales greeted each other after being apart. The sounds were not random noise. They were structured communication with clear purposes. But then the machine found something even more shocking. Whale language had building blocks, just like human language. 4 basic elements that could be combined in different ways to create meaning: timing, rhythm, tempo, ornamentation. Change one element and you change the meaning of what is being said. This was grammar, real functional grammar operating exactly the way human languages operate when we combine sounds to form words and words to form sentences. The AI could now predict what sound a whale would make next based on context. It could identify which family a whale belonged to just by listening to its dialect. It could even detect when a whale made a mistake and corrected itself mid-sentence. After 50 years of listening without comprehension, humans finally had a tool capable of understanding what the ocean had been saying all along. The only question left was whether we were ready for the answer. First contact. Understanding a language is one thing. Speaking it is something else entirely. The research team faced a decision that would change the relationship between humans and whales forever. They could continue listening passively, studying from a distance the way scientists had always done. Or they could try something unprecedented. They could try to speak. The AI had not just analyzed existing whale sounds. It had learned the rules well enough to generate new ones, creating codas that followed the grammatical structure the machine had discovered but had never actually been recorded from a living whale. These were original compositions, sentences in whale language written by artificial intelligence and designed to be spoken through underwater speakers. The ethical concerns were immediate. What if speaking to whales changed their behavior in harmful ways? What if artificial codas confused young whales still learning their family dialect? What if the attempt at communication was misunderstood as aggression? Some researchers argued they should wait years before attempting contact. Others believed the discovery was too important to delay. The decision was made to proceed with extreme caution. The team would broadcast AI-generated codas near a well-studied whale pod using patterns that appeared neutral in the database, avoiding anything that seemed aggressive or threatening. They would play short sequences, wait for responses, and stop immediately if the whales showed any sign of distress. On a calm morning with clear water and perfect conditions, the experiment began. Cameras rolled, hydrophones surrounded the area. Tags were attached to 3 adult whales. The team lowered the underwater speaker and transmitted the first AI-generated coda into the ocean, a simple pattern that whales typically used when approaching each other peacefully. Then they waited. Silence, tension, nobody breathed. The response came within 2 minutes. A massive female sperm whale, one of the matriarchs the team had studied for years, appeared near the boat and began vocalizing. But she was not using her normal sounds. She was producing the exact pattern the AI had just transmitted, repeating it 3 times as she circled closer. Then she stopped, floated motionless for several seconds, and clicked out a new sequence, one the AI immediately recognized as an invitation to approach. The team transmitted another coda. The whale responded faster, using variations of the pattern and adding elements recorded in extended whale conversations. 2 more whales joined her. The interaction continued for 18 minutes back and forth, with whales responding consistently to each transmission. This was not coincidence. This was not mimicry. The whales understood that the sounds coming from the speaker were attempts at communication. They recognized the patterns as language, and they were choosing to respond. For the first time in the 4 billion-year history of life on Earth, 2 completely different intelligent species had held a conversation. The scientists celebrated. Some cried. Others laughed in disbelief. This was the breakthrough everyone had dreamed about, proof that whales were intelligent, communicative, and aware in ways nobody had dared to confirm. But the celebration did not last long. The message no one expected. That night, the celebration faded into something far more unsettling. The research team gathered around laptops in the ship's cramped cabin, replaying the recordings from the historic interaction while the AI continued its relentless analysis, cross-referencing every whale response with decades of archived sounds stored in the database. At first, the mood was still electric. They had achieved the impossible. They had spoken to another species and received a coherent reply. But as the hours passed and the machine learning algorithms dug deeper into the data, something uncomfortable began to emerge from the patterns. The codas the whales had used during the conversation were not matching the neutral greeting sequences the team expected to find. Instead, they aligned with sounds recorded in completely different contexts, near container ships cutting through migration routes, near offshore drilling platforms pumping noise into the deep, near military vessels conducting sonar exercises that sent whales fleeing in panic. These were not sounds of curiosity or welcome. These were sounds that appeared during moments of extreme stress, sounds that carried the unmistakable weight of warnings or protests or something even more confrontational. One researcher sat frozen at her screen, scrolling through the correlation data, feeling her stomach tighten with each new match the AI revealed. The team had used artificial intelligence to translate human concepts into whale language and broadcast them into the ocean, believing they were initiating peaceful contact. The whale had responded immediately, decisively, using patterns that seemed to say something very different from hello. The question nobody wanted to voice finally broke the silence. What if the whales were not greeting the researchers at all? What if they were doing something else entirely? Something the team had been too hopeful to recognize in the moment. The investigation expanded rapidly after that night. The team began mapping every whale coda in their database against records of human activity in the ocean. They overlaid 50 years of recordings with shipping routes, naval exercise zones, oil drilling operations, commercial fishing grounds, and underwater construction sites. The pattern that emerged was impossible to dismiss as coincidence and impossible to explain away with comfortable assumptions. Whales living near busy shipping lanes used specific codas far more frequently than whales inhabiting quiet, undisturbed waters. These were not the relaxed social sounds exchanged between family members or the coordinated clicks used during hunting. They were sharp, urgent patterns characterized by faster rhythms and shorter pauses, sounds that demanded attention. The AI flagged them consistently as high-stress vocalizations, the acoustic signature of whales that were agitated, threatened, or desperately trying to communicate danger to others nearby. The recordings collected near military sonar zones painted an even more disturbing picture. Whales exposed to naval exercises produced patterns that matched across different oceans and different decades of data. Pods near the coast of California used the same distress sequences as pods near Norway. Whales recorded in the 1980s made sounds identical to whales recorded in the 2020s. Animals separated by thousands of miles of ocean and entire generations of time were using the same patterns to describe the same threat. This was not genetic instinct hardwired into whale biology. This was something far more remarkable and far more troubling. This was shared cultural knowledge, survival information being actively passed between pods through chance encounters in the vast emptiness of the sea. When two whale families crossed paths, they exchanged more than social pleasantries. They exchanged warnings about the dangerous sounds that could rupture their hearing, disorient their navigation, and drive entire groups to beach themselves in confusion on foreign shores. The spread of these warning codas defied simple explanation. A pod near Hawaii would encounter military sonar for the first time and produce specific distress patterns in response. Then, months later, a completely separate pod near Japan that had never experienced naval activity in its entire history would use those exact same patterns when unfamiliar ships approached their territory. The information traveled faster than whale migration could account for, jumping across oceans through networks of communication that researchers were only beginning to understand. Whales were not merely reacting as individuals to immediate threats. They were teaching each other. They were building and sharing a vocabulary specifically designed to describe dangers that had never existed before humans arrived, dangers that now had names encoded in click patterns: propeller, sonar, drill, net, engine, danger, leave. The full weight of the discovery settled over the research team like a physical burden. The language humans had spent 50 years recording was not neutral documentation of whale social behavior happening to occur while boats floated overhead. It was something else entirely. It was the ongoing record of an entire species trying to cope with invasion, trying to protect their young, trying to maintain their way of life while an alien presence spread relentlessly through every corner of their world. Every coda recorded near a passing ship. Every pattern shift detected near industrial noise. Every urgent exchange between mothers and calves when boats approached their nursing grounds. All of it was connected. All of it was part of the same continuous message that had been broadcasting through the ocean for decades, while humanity remained completely deaf to its meaning. The whales were not singing for human entertainment. They were not inviting humanity into their world with open fins. They were setting boundaries. They were issuing warnings. They were telling us in the only language they possessed to leave them alone. And for 50 years, we had recorded every word without understanding a single one. When warnings become action. While scientists in the Caribbean were decoding sperm whale language, something strange and violent was happening thousands of miles away off the coast of Europe. Orcas, the ocean's apex predators, had begun attacking boats. Not accidentally, not out of curiosity, deliberately. They targeted the rudders of sailing vessels, biting and ramming until the boats were disabled and needed rescue. The attack started near the Strait of Gibraltar in 2020, when a small group of orcas began approaching yachts and systematically destroying their steering mechanisms. Sailors reported feeling powerful impacts from below, hearing crunching sounds as orca teeth tore through fiberglass and metal, watching in disbelief as these intelligent animals worked together with clear purpose. At first, researchers assumed it was isolated aggression from a few disturbed individuals. Then the behavior spread. Within months, orcas that had never shown hostility toward boats began copying the attacks. Young orcas watched adults disable rudders and then practiced the technique themselves. The behavior jumped between pods that had no direct contact with each other. By 2023, hundreds of incidents had been recorded along the coasts of Spain, Portugal, and France. The orcas showed no signs of stopping. What terrified researchers was not just the violence, but the communication surrounding it. Hydrophone recordings captured unique vocal signals used exclusively during attacks, calls that appeared nowhere else in the Orca database. These were not hunting sounds or social chatter. They were something new, something that seemed to coordinate the assaults. Different orcas took turns ramming rudders while others watched and waited. The calls intensified when damage was done, almost like celebration. Then the pod would move on to find another target. The contrast between orcas and sperm whales became impossible to ignore. Sperm whale language appeared stable across generations, changing slowly over decades, suggesting a culture built on tradition and careful preservation of knowledge. Orca communication was different, flexible, fast-changing. When orcas encountered new situations, they invented new behaviors and new signals to match, spreading innovation through their populations at speeds that looked almost human. Scientists began to wonder if they were witnessing the birth of a resistance language, vocal signals designed specifically for hostile interaction with human technology. The orcas were not mindless animals lashing out. They were strategic thinkers adapting their culture to survive in an ocean that had become increasingly hostile to their existence. If sperm whales had been warning humans for decades through language nobody understood, orcas had stopped warning and started acting. Their message was not hidden in complex grammar or ancient dialects. It was written in shattered rudders and stranded sailboats. The ocean was no longer just speaking. It was shouting. The reckoning. For thousands of years, humans sailed across the ocean believing we were alone in our intelligence. We assumed the creatures beneath our ships were beautiful but simple, driven by instinct and survival, incapable of complex thought or meaningful communication. That comfortable delusion shattered the moment AI decoded whale language and revealed what had been happening beneath the surface all along. Humanity was never alone in the ocean. We had just been too arrogant to notice. The evidence is now undeniable. Whales possess language with grammar, culture, and the ability to adapt and teach across generations. Orcas demonstrate rapid social learning and coordinated responses to perceived threats.
Orcas never used to travel for the sardine run, but now they swim thousands of miles to intercept the shoals.
These are not simple animals reacting to stimuli. These are intelligent minds processing information, making decisions, and communicating complex ideas to each other about the species that invaded their world. The ocean has always been full of conversation. We were simply too deaf to listen. And now that we can finally hear, the message is not what anyone wanted it to be. The decoded patterns tell a story of escalation. Whales near human activity produce sounds filled with urgency that peaceful social calls never contain. They are not singing about the beauty of the deep or calling lovingly to their children. They are warning each other about propellers and drilling and sonar. They are teaching survival strategies to the young. They are coordinating avoidance of an invasive species that refuses to respect boundaries. The ethical weight of this discovery is crushing. For 50 years, scientists recorded whale sounds while assuming the animals had no idea they were being studied. But if whales associate boats with noise, collisions, and habitat destruction, then every research vessel that approached a pod was not an invisible observer. It was an intruder. The whales knew we were there. They always knew. And the decoded language suggests they have not been pleased about it for a very long time. The Orca attacks take on new meaning in this context. No longer random aggression, but a logical extension of intelligence under pressure. If communication can spread warnings, it can also spread tactics. Orcas decided that disabling boats was an effective response to decades of overfishing, pollution, and noise. They were not acting on blind instinct. They were making a calculated choice. Humanity now faces a question it never seriously considered. What happens when another intelligent species decides we have gone too far? The ocean was never empty, wilderness waiting to be exploited. It was someone else's home, and the residents have been telling us to leave for years in a language we refuse to learn. Now the translation is complete. The message is clear. This is not a greeting. This is not an invitation to friendship. This is a reckoning. So where does this leave us? We now know the ocean is not a void, but a living network of memory, language, and intent. A civilization without cities, passing knowledge through sound instead of stone, watching as our ships multiply, our weapons grow louder, our reach extends deeper into their world. The data is clear. The messages are changing, growing sharper, more unified, as if a conclusion is being drawn beneath the waves. This is no longer a question of discovery, but of response. Because once a voice is finally heard, silence becomes a choice. And history has never been kind to those who ignore warnings simply because they come from an unfamiliar source. The ocean has spoken. The patterns are accelerating, and the next chapter of this story will not be written by whales alone. The only question that remains is this: when the moment comes to answer, will we still be listening, or will we already have decided to look away?